Here's Bellinelli for three, and he's done it again. He shoots on Wayne Ellington and puts it in. He's got 6 field goals, 3 threes, 15 points, and it's a 4-point game.
That was Bellinelli the other night as Tom McGinnis called his name a bunch of times, and he joins us now on the Sports Bash on 97.3 ESPN. Welcome back, Tom. How you been?
Great. Good afternoon, guys. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. 30-25, 55 games in. The 76ers, if anything, my father tells me, I'll tell you what, I look forward to every night, he says. He's entertained, he's having fun, as it seems that this has been a fun and entertaining season.
A bright legal mind he is. There's no doubt about it. It's a fun team to watch. They scrap and play hard and all of the things, that we like to root for, hustle and all of those things. Nothing more depicted than in that game the other night against Miami with the comeback. And then there's extraordinary talent, better talent than we've had in years. Great long players that lends itself to defense and dramatic offensive plays when you consider Joel and the lobs and whatnot, and Ben Simmons, and then the outside prowess now of J.J. Redick. You mentioned Bellinelli. And the scrap and fight of Dario and TJ, and it's been with full houses at the arena. It's been a great year so far, and a long way to go.
Yeah, my father actually sat right behind you the other night at the game on Saturday night. He said, "Man, they had the radio and TV guys right in front of me. It was a full house there. The energy's big." But let's bring us through the game the other night against the Heat. When anytime Joel's not in, the fans the energy kind of gets sucked out a little bit, and then the play on the court mirrored that. The play just was not very good for a half, but the fight and the energy to get back into that game, and you could hear it in your calls in that late in the third and into the fourth. That was the kind of game there that might have been one of their most impressive wins of the year, and they didn't have Joel in that game.
Well, there's no doubt about impressive victories just because it really hasn't occurred like that before, and then it's the most recent, so it's got to rank up there. And yeah, you're right, Mike. At the very beginning of the game, one of my comments was, this is not the team we've been accustomed to watching. They were flat and non-energetic, and, I believe they started maybe 4 of 9 from the field. It was close in the first few minutes, but then Miami was up by 9, and, our guys have played without Joel, but not in recent games. I think they got used to him a little bit, and maybe there was a little letdown, and, the fact that they'd had 5 straight home games and they'd played with great energy throughout all of them. But then I think the remarkable thing is to kind of reinvent yourself at halftime and come out, and that was depicted so well in the offensive rebound, and they just wanted it more. And, Miami had played the night before in Toronto, and both these franchises, all teams, really pride themselves on conditioning and career best fitness is the phrase that's used. But let's be honest, in the fourth quarter, it's going to dissipate a little bit, and it certainly did. The Sixers socked them a little bit in the mouth, and Miami fell off, and the Sixers just came charging out. Bellinelli was huge, considering 17 points in his first game. I mean, that's a pretty good thing. And I know around the organization, they were prideful that he selected the Sixers. It's Marco Bellinelli. It's his 7th or 8th time. I get it. It's not LeBron and Bosh heading to South Beach. But it's important for the Sixers because he definitely had other options, and clearly he's going to be able to help the team. So that was a great game. They set out a goal to win all 5 of those games, and they put themselves in a nice position now for, I say, a long way to go. And I mean that, this year, down the road, next year, and on. But this is going to be a sprint. Typically at this point of the year, you play almost every other day. I know they spaced out the schedule a little bit, but now I believe we have 27 or so games left. And, as Brett Brown said the other night prior to the game, this is when it gets fun. These games are like playoff games. I thought that Miami game was like that a little bit. And then you have to put yourselves in position for the playoffs. So it's going to be great for the team and most definitely for the fans.
Tom McGinnis, the voice of the 76ers. You can listen to him right here on 97.3 ESPN. And I heard you say that. I was listening, I guess it was Wednesday night against Miami, and you said, look, they're in the second of these back-to-backs. Let's see if the Sixers can take advantage of this. And they did. And that really, there's a lot of times this year where the Sixers, it was the opposite. They've opened up big leads and then kind of coughed them away. They've lost a couple games earlier this year that, I think a lot of people would look back and say, man, they should have beat Phoenix. They should have beat Chicago. But do you see that this team has kind of learned the Kings game out in Sacramento comes to mind? Are there games Do you think that they have learned from those type of losses? Are you noticing that at this stage of the season where, hey, this team's up 24, but they played last night. Let's make a run on this team and see if we can get them to fold, kind of similar to what we've done earlier this year.
Right. All good points, Mike. And you would hope so. You definitely want to learn from your mistakes. And, going way back, one of the things I said is that this group is going to make mistakes. They're young players. And, entitled or justified is not the right phrase, but let's be honest, they're going to make mistakes, and they have. And so you'd hope to learn from those mistakes, and graduate above that. And I think we have to a certain extent. There was a stint there where Ben Simmons, and then he ended up with 5 turnovers in a short spell in one game, where he had like 1 or 2 turnovers going back several games. So he's been more judicious with the ball. And let's face it, that's how you have to win. You have to be able to maximize your possessions and get as many scoring opportunities, and then conversely, not allow them to get on the run and get baskets when your defense isn't set. And if they don't master that a little bit better, then they're not going to fare well getting into playoffs or into playoffs. I mean, you've got to get stops and scores, and part of the scoring is, obviously to maintain possession and to get a shot up, but it's also part of a young team. Part of the reason it's been fun, to some of our earlier points, is because they're extremely talented and there's some high wire acts. But with that comes some pain sometimes, and that's been with the turnovers and a little bit of not managing time and scoring. And they play fast with one of the best paces, which is a statistic and analytical thing in the NBA. And with that comes some turnovers. So hopefully so. But, it may not be the last time we've seen that. And to your point about the losses, there's always woulda, coulda, shoulda games in every season, and we definitely have 7 or 8 of those. You could include Houston when we lost on a last-second shot with Eric Gordon at the center. I think you could even include the 3 overtime loss to Oklahoma. We were up 5 with 2.5 minutes to go in the 3rd overtime and lost. So, and that obviously was a very quality opponent. But without question, even the Devin Booker Phoenix game, even though that game, they just came out and waxed us. That wasn't one that the Sacramento game out there where De'Aaron Fox hit the 13-footer. He hasn't hit a jumper since, by the way. But that's the type of game that you're going to look at. If they don't get the seed or they get a bad period in the playoffs or they don't make the playoffs, you're going to look back at some of those games and wish you could have had them back. But that's part of the growing process.
Tom McGinnis with us, the voice of the Philadelphia 76ers. Tom, I'm glad you brought up the turnovers because as a Temple alum, that's one of the stats that I go to. I mean, I watched John Chaney yell about turnovers all my 4 years of college and even afterwards. So I did note that the other night, the 19 turnovers, they had 11 in the first half. They had 8 in the second half, so that number did go down. And then the rebounding, 60-29 without Embiid, was a big number too. But, Tom, we talk about the young talent on this team. It's fun. It's exciting. What about J.J. Redick, though, a veteran? What has he added to this team, maybe off the floor, too? Is he one of the guys that they turn to?
Well, he's added a lot, nearly 17 points per game and shot making. We could talk all about the Miami game, but you got to say he hit the game-winning shot, that leaping leader from the far baseline by their bench. And then you're right, he is a leader. I mean, he's been around. He's 33 years old. He was part of a Clippers team that won 50 games in a row, 5 straight years. I remember when the Sixers had an early winning streak, and for us, 3 games is ready to get out the pom-poms. And he, calmly said, look, it's not a winning streak till you've won 5 in a row. And we all went, okay, I'm going to write that down. It's not a winning streak till you won 5 in a row. JJ said so. But I think he's and he's a smart guy. He's added a lot to the locker room. And, as we found out the other day with the Golden State Warriors, the coach can only say so much. And you got to have guys that go out there and put the marching orders in place, and those guys police themselves. I mean, there's a lot of things. They have a group text amongst the players, and they got that going in the summer because JJ was new to the group. So I think there's a lot of tentacles and things that reach out with his leadership that are probably not even, that we're not even aware of. There's no doubt his work ethic. You should see his warm-up routine. One of our video guys sent it to me, and I thought it was going to be like his shooting, as he moves his way out from the rim and he starts with the rhythm shots. No, it's like hey, Pete, all of our quarters would be a lot better if we did the J.J. Redick warm-up workout. It was unbelievable. That was just before he came out onto the court. And there's a part of it that ends up on the court. So his preparation, that professionalism we always hear about across the board in other sports, Well, those things are stated for reasons because they're there, they're evident, and young players, and we've got some guys that are 20 and 22 years old that they're going to look up to and learn from a guy like that.
You know, Tom, maybe we get into a little bit, too, that veteran players now want to come to this team. And you touched on that a minute ago when you talked about Marco Bellinelli after the game saying that he had been in Charlotte and there weren't really guys there that wanted to win, or Atlanta, and he didn't feel like there was guys wanting to win. But Mike and I have gone back and forth. How much do you attribute then Brett Brown, too? Guys want to come and be a part of the Brett Brown coach team.
Well, I mean, certainly we go right back to Reddick. That was one of the reasons that he came here. And, you know, I think these guys, the players are so smart. They're able to really – you can't trick the players. I mean, really. They know. I mean, they know just by watching other teams and how they prepare and how they execute and how hard our team is fought despite the fact that we've struggled in recent years record-wise, you know, going back to 10 wins and so to keep the group together and the respect at the end of the day by how hard we played, and just to touch on that, now we're playing that hard and there's talent. And that, I think, has led to where we are right now with 30 wins at this stage in the season. And Bellinelli and Charlotte, Pete, you bet he played for Steve Clifford. That Brett Brown, and Steve Clifford goes back with the Brown family for years. Brett's dad helped him out as a young coach up in Maine and New Hampshire. And then the other guy he played with in Bellinelli was tournament title team in San Antonio, and Pop is one of Coach's best friends. So I'm sure they spoke highly of him, and that's helped out in his transition. A lot of the jargon is the same in terms of defensive concepts and whatnot. But like I said, those are small victories with Reddick, and Reddick also had 23 other million reasons to come here. But those people picking Philadelphia is part of, you know, the Reddick signing. I go back, and, you know, it may not be a direct parallel, but it's like Jim told me signing with the Phillies back then. It was like a sign of, all right, here we go. And those are big things, you know, and hopefully we'll have other great players and young players and free agents and whatnot that choose Philadelphia and add to this core as we go forward.
Spending a few minutes with Tom McGinnis, the voice of the Sixers, talking about some of the veteran players that have now come over, like J.J. Redick and Marco Bellinelli. But, boy, one of the youngest guys, Tom, is the guy that just keeps putting up eye-popping stats and doing it quietly, and that's Ben Simmons, another rookie triple-double. He passed the great Tom Gola now with 6 rookie triple-doubles. Now he's on a list with Magic Johnson and the Big O, Oscar Robertson, and I'm sure you got to mention the Kangaroo Kid the other night on the broadcast, too. Is Ben Simmons playing with a chip on his shoulder?
Well, first of all, you know, you're right about Billy Cunningham, and that's one thing that just mesmerizes me. You know, like the fact that some of these numbers that Simmons is racking up are comparable to the greats in the game. That's an awesome thing right there. And yeah, I think he does play with a chip on his shoulder. And, you know, guys have to find that a little bit. And Ben, whether it's in the recent weeks, the Kemba Walker chip or you know, these guys that got selected before him. And let's be honest, not too many rookies get selected for the real All-Star game. I think Blake Griffin was the most recent. Yao was one. Even LeBron didn't make it his rookie year, but he does. There's something about it that he gets after it. And as an athlete, you never want to lose that. You know, you never want to get comfortable. You want to create that sense of urgency every single time the ball goes up. And whatever it is, sometimes you're tricking yourself. Whatever it is, if that motivates you to play all out and to play with, you know, the guts and determination that it takes to be successful, you go for it. And you know, he's been an incredible player. There's no question about it. And, you know, he had a jump shot the other night. I think that's going to be, we all realize that's going to be the next evolution in his game, which is going to take a while. But he's been absolutely everything that one could have hoped for.
The radio voice of the 76ers, Tom McGinnis, is with us here. And obviously, there's 27 games left, so there's still a lot to accomplish here. But, you know, you're around this team every single night, and you got to wonder how much have you seen this team grow from training camp? You know, you see a much more mature, young team, you know, like we talked about, or how they're winning and closing some games out. There's a lot of games that they, you know, maybe should have won earlier that they didn't. But how have you seen this team kind of grow and mature over the course of the year?
Well, I'd say a lot, no doubt about it. You know, like I said, they're protecting leads better. They're finishing off games. And quite frankly, that's something you want to see. I mean, it's a long season. These guys are together for 6-7 months, if you're lucky, even more. And so you want them to grow. Each player should grow. The individual growth should occur. Now, a big chunk of that will come in the off season when you can really drill in on certain things. But when you have a young team, they should get better when they're around the coaches and with all they put into it, with the video study and just everything. I mean, this Brett Brown, it's part of what he put in place over all these past months and years was a program and a culture and building that and putting these guys in the absolute best environment. And it's like in the best possible way. It's like a basketball factory down there in Camden. It's incredible with all the staff that they have and in so many different areas. I mean, it's a tremendous environment for growing and learning, and not just on the court. So they've grown quite a bit. And like I said, the development has got to improve and keep going all the time over the next few years. These young players are going to get a lot better. So, and that part's exciting. And one of the guys we haven't mentioned, and he's always left out, is my man Dario Saric. What a year he's had. You got to consider he didn't even start at the beginning of the year, and he's racked up 34 consecutive double-doubles. You're talking about the heart, and he and TJ embody what the heart and soul of our team has been. So it's a bright future, and it's going to be an exciting next couple of months, that's for sure.
And, Tom, I was going to ask you about TJ and Covington together, because those two guys were around when things weren't so good. They were kind of, two diamonds in the rough that came out of, the rough times here. And I wonder, do those two guys seem like they're appreciating this a little bit more?
Well, no doubt about it. And Joel's part of that, too, even though he didn't play for the first couple of years. But you're right. I mean, those two guys go back to the Hinkie era, and that's what Sam Hinkie was kind of looking for, was to get the double 3 times return on a young player. And you're right. I think Cub and TJ fit into that mold pretty well. And, Cub's had a little bit of an up and down. He's a streaky scorer, and he hasn't performed all that well of late. So that's one thing. You're hoping he kind of turns it around a little bit and gets a little more consistent where you can count on a couple 3 threes per game. His defense has been there. And then TJ, there's been a lot of fun, special, entertaining moments and games during the course of this season. But the other night on Monday when TJ got a triple-double, his first ever one off the bench, and no Sixer had ever done that, and there's only a handful of players that have ever done it in the NBA. When he got that rebound and the crowd rose as one, the fact that they were all aware of it, I thought was amazing. And everybody just kind of celebrated together at the fact that the guy got a one more rebound to what was a great overall game is kind of really neat. And I think everybody roots for a guy like T.J. McConnell because, by his own estimation, he doesn't fit the eye test. He's not 6'9" and jumping up and out of the gym. He's playing hard, and we talked about having a chip. Well, he's got the biggest chip of all. He's got to wear shoulder pads. His chip is so big.
Wasn't TJ the guy that went over to Xfinity and they weren't going to give him the deal? Like, he's like, I played in the game. Like, sir, do you have your ticket for the game to show that you can get the deal? I played in the game.
Yeah. Well, if it didn't, it makes for a good story, and it could possibly be true. There's no doubt about it. Like I said, he might be from Pittsburgh, but he's Philly tough, that's for sure.
Tom McGinnis is with us. Tom, obviously not asking you to kind of give us any insight or inside information on Fultz, but have you got a chance to see him around the team doing anything, recently? Because obviously he's around there. I mean, he seems like he's around the team, which is more than years past. You wouldn't see Joel and Ben travel as much, but it seems like Markelle is around and practicing and shooting. And obviously this has been a really difficult year for him, but does he seem like he's upbeat and at least invested?
Oh, yeah, he's totally upbeat. He's a really engaging young guy. Everybody loves Markelle. He's got a great personality. And here's the big thing. He's 19 years old. And, you're seeing him because he's trying to work on his shot and get better. So, like you said, there's not a lot to be said from my corner. There's been quite a number of things stated about Markelle. You just wish for him the best. And hopefully, I watch him. He's got a unique talent. There's no doubt he's got to get this shooting thing fixed and work on it. But here's a little secret. He's not even going to need a jump shot. This guy's incredible in getting to the rim. Don't get me wrong. I realize in the NBA, particularly playing that spot, you need a jump shot. But that's how he's just got a wiggle to him. He's got this unbelievable ability to get to the rack. And So I'm sure they'll get it worked out. Everybody, it's a kind of an all-hands-on-deck type of thing. And like I said, there's been a lot talked about and a lot of scrutiny. Hopefully he's able to block that out in terms of some of the outside things and get worked on what needs to be worked out with him and his coaches, because they're definitely putting in a lot of work. I know Billy Lang and a number of guys, Ted Brown, has worked with him as well, and John Townsend, our shooting coach. But I think it'll all get straightened out, and he'll be another great core piece for the Sixers.
Tom, before we let you go, Mike and I have been having fun all day with sports bucket list items. We each gave our top 10 of sports bucket list items we'd like to go to. We've been lucky to cover some great things, but is there a sports bucket list item or two that come to your mind if I say sports bucket list of places you want to go or events you want to go?
Well, you got to be careful here because you can tell I'm a little long-winded, and I've been around sports my whole life. I've been a sportscaster for 35 years, and a couple of them would be I'm a big tennis guy. I always have been, played quite a bit when I was younger, and we were just in London. I would love to go to Wimbledon.
Yep, I had that on mine. Yep.
Yeah, and not just for a day, but just to be able to go around some of the outside courts and be there and like that and follow the tournament a good bit. And I've never been to the Kentucky Derby, and I'm not looking for a mint julep, but again, just the pomp and circumstance of what that is. Not a big horse guy, but I'll watch the Triple Crown races and with interest and like that. And but I'll tell you what, my big thing about sports is the people, and even things like this, and just talking the game, talking about the personalities, the stories. That's what's compelling to me. And going places is really neat, and I'm sure I could find 15 other things if I had some other time. But to me, it's just being around the game, watching people react in situations, in terms of how they handle things and what drives a guy. And to me, that's the whole human drama of sports, and that's what brings us back. And that was obviously what was so special about the Eagles championship and everything that the Eagles have gone through and their fans have gone through that will never make it, and the fact that they grabbed the brass ring. To me, that's what's special about sports, more than being able to attend the Final Four or anything along those lines. It's the people and the human drama that comes with it.
Yeah, a lot of fun today. The listeners sent us a ton of great events. Tom McGinnis, the radio voice of the Philadelphia 76ers, here on the Boardwalk Honda Hotline on 97.3 ESPN. And, of course, you'll hear Tom having a little All-Star break. They'll be back on Thursday night, I believe, is when they resume play from All-Star Weekend. Ben, Dario, and Joel will be a part of the weekend. And then 27 games down the stretch they come to see if they can make the playoffs for the first time since that 12 season. Tom, good to catch up, pal. Enjoy the rest of this beach day.
All right. Thank you, guys.